Welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast, where we come together to make a difference in the lives of children in foster care and the families who care for them. Foster Friendly communities are part of a nationwide movement by America's Kids Belong that helps people from all walks of life take action and help kids and families thrive. You'll hear from former foster youth, foster and adoptive parents, social workers, faith and business leaders, and other experts on how to engage in meaningful ways. Our hosts Brian, Travis, and Courtney explore inspiring stories of everyday people making a difference in foster care where they live and work.
Hello, and welcome to the Foster Friendly Podcast. I'm your friendly host, Brian, and I've got my even more friendly host, Travis, with me.
All right.
Travis, yeah, be friendly today.
Be friendly.
And Travis, I know we've got a special interview today, and you are pumped because you've actually had a chance to get started on this recent book our guest has done. So our guest today is Patton Dodd. Patton, welcome.
Thank you, guys. Happy to be here.
So Patton, I'm going to do a little brief intro bio about you.
Okay. Something
formal, and then you can, of course, fill in anything that I happen to skip that you want to integrate. But it says here, formally, Patton is the executive director of storytelling and communications for the H.E. Butt Foundation in San Antonio. And along with overseeing communication strategy for the organization, he also runs Know Your Neighbor, a program that uses storytelling to build bridges across San Antonio's economic divides. Patton, you've done a lot of writing and have been published in the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, the Atlantic, the Financial Times, Newsweek, Slate, CNN, and Christianity Today. You also hold a doctorate in religion and literature from Boston University, and you just released this book that we're going to talk about some on this podcast called The Father You Get and the Ones You Make, Believe in, and Become. And really looking forward to that because Travis and I are big believers that if we could fix one thing, the fatherhood thing would be the thing that could change all sorts of things. So welcome. And anything else you want to fill in there?
No, I think you summed it up. I'm excited to be here. We can talk about any and all of that, but yeah, the fatherhood book and that theme has been much on my mind in recent years. So I'm ready to dive into that for sure.
All right. So I'm going to do a little icebreaker. And so I'm not sure when this podcast gets released, but for our listeners, this is our first recording into the new year of 2026. And since you're a writer, I assume you're a words guy. Do you do that word of the year thing that kind of helps you focus on what you want to do or not?
I have done it. I don't anymore. I'm a resolutions guy, and so I have lists of things that I want to do and goals and intentions and that kind of thing. And getting it all down to one word just ultimately didn't work for me. And
me neither. In fact, I would sabotage myself for some reason. I mean, I can guarantee whatever it was that word was not going to happen that year.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so let's switch this up then. I'll give you a word, and I want you to tell me just like what this word means to you.
Okay.
Father.
It's who I am at this point, which is an identity that I have slowly embraced. I've been at it for a long time, but it took me a while to really embrace that identity. So I think that's the first thing that comes to mind for me now. I'm kind of like glad to say it. When you said that, I thought, I'm a father.
Great.
I'm a father. Yeah.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking the follow up, tell me about that journey of why it took you some time to embrace that identity.
I mean, I think it was because I had a pretty messed up childhood with a messed up father, and I had a very complicated relationship with him, and therefore with fatherhood. And you know, the book is really is that story of me. Well, me trying to for the first time really tell that story to myself and share it with others, so that I could figure out what was going on with me as a dad, and not just as a dad, and as a person, and other kinds of relationships as well. But yeah, I was haunted for a long time by a very broken relationship with my own dad and with who he was. And so, yeah, it just unsettled me for years and years.
All right. Well, that makes sense. And we'll dig into that a little bit more later. And that went heavier than a typical icebreaker.
Welcome to Patton Dodd. We're going to sit in some melancholy too.
Boy, you're fun at parties. Okay,
that's good.
But no, yeah,
that's good.
I would love to back up a little bit, and we're going to explore a little bit more, just kind of your role around storytelling. So, Travis, let's dig into that.
Yeah. So, as Brian said, so excited to have you, and just talk. So, zooming really further out right now in the realm of storytelling, which is where you're huge. There's a great quote by the writer Barry Lopez where he said once, "Sometimes a person needs a story more than food to stay alive." What is it, Patton, about the power of story that just gives us needed sustenance?
Gosh, yeah, that's a great question. It gives me goosebumps, actually. We need stories to locate ourselves. I think we're lost without them. They give us grounding, and they give us direction. Probably direction in all four directions, all four cardinal points. You know what I mean? They just help us figure out where and who and what we are. You're not just the way you are, like for no reason. Like you emerge from a story. You emerge from the story of your family of origin, the families that preceded your family that your parents came from. Like all that narrative accumulates into you. And I think we need to know, I guess, personal story and family story to get some clarity about how we came to be the way that we are. That's just one kind of story. There's also community stories, public stories, but I think we can apply the same principle across those. We need stories of all kinds of dimensions and all kinds of levels to find ourselves, know ourselves, and then better relate to the people around us.
So I'm still, even though I gave your formal introduction, trying to parse out your roles beyond fatherhood. So tell me a little bit more about your work with Know Your Neighbor, and help me distinguish or integrate. How's that connected or not connected with your role with the foundation?
Yeah, so I work for a foundation in South Texas, the H.E. Buck Foundation, and we do all kinds of things. We are what's called an operating foundation, which means instead of grant making, the way a lot of foundations are known to do, we create our own programs and operate them completely.
Okay.
It's like a collection of nonprofits in a way, and that we operate all of them. And we do a lot of different kinds of things. We do a lot of camping and retreat work in the hill country of Texas. And in San Antonio, we do various community engagement initiatives. And one of them is Know Your Neighbor. And there's a long story behind Know Your Neighbor. So my background's in journalism. When I first came here, I proposed to the foundation that we start a newsroom, like a nonprofit newsroom, reporting on economic hardship issues in San Antonio. And we did that for a while. Economic hardship is a really important story in this city because San Antonio is one of the most impoverished big cities in the country, and has kind of always been. Yeah. And it's a big and important, it's the 7th biggest city in the nation, which most people don't know.
Wow.
And it has a lot of features that I think are kind of, bellwether for what's happening in our country. Anyway, we wanted to report on poverty, economic hardship, the wealth gap in this city. So we did that as journalists for a while, but to make a long story short, we ultimately decided that what we were doing, wasn't good enough. We were kind of preaching to the choir. Like we were finding with our stories about these issues, we were finding an audience that already cared about them. And what we had wanted to do was kind of grow the conversation about poverty and inequality. And we weren't really doing that. So we have remade this effort as a storytelling initiative where we kind of still do the work of reporting, but we do it with our audience in mind first. We try to gather an audience of people who were just maybe starting to get curious about these issues in our city. and we take them through a process of learning. We've generated an audience of people who I think care about these issues and who are new to it. We've done a lot of intermingling of institutions in San Antonio, churches across different zip codes getting together, businesses, that kind of thing. We've taken a lot of people into different neighborhoods in San Antonio and have them walk these streets and get to know what's happening there. So I would say the outcome so far is mostly like building more and more awareness.
And so which was your goal? You felt like the conversation had a small audience, and you were like, let's expand the audience.
Right. We're not pushing towards particular policy outcomes or anything like that. We're just trying to we're an education operation, really. We're trying to get people to become more aware, more familiar with who their neighbors are and connected with them relationally. And we believe that out of that, good things will emerge. And we see it happening in a variety of ways. But we're still in the early days here and kind of waiting and seeing what is possible in a city like ours when we build bridges across these divides.
Totally. Yeah. I'm a believer and been saying lately a mantra. I'm a mantra guy. One of my newer ones is we are expecting more and more out of technology and less out of relationships. When I think it's the relationships that actually help people change. All right. I want to shift though now specifically and what kind of is our sweet spot here on this podcast about relationships and in this case, fatherhood. So Travis, you've gotten to dig into Patton's new book. So I'm going to let you take the lead on this.
Yeah. I mean, so incredible book. I've just started it. I'm really excited to keep working on it through the year. Let's shift gears into that and talk about, so it's your memoir, The Father You Get. You're a prolific writer. I mean, it just grabbed me. I love writing in words. And so like, even just early on, I was just so grabbed by lines, and there was a line particularly that just, you even describing your father, you said, a shovel of a man who dug his family into deeper and deeper holes. It's writing like that. That's just, wow. So, bring us into the journey of writing that book and kind of what's the synopsis on that?
Yeah. I mean, I just was, I think I said before, haunted by my dad's story and my story of life with him, but I hadn't really examined it. And I think I put it off for a long time. For years, I had friends telling me, you need to write about your dad someday. Like people that are close to me who I would talk to about him would say this to me. And I just ran from it. Over in the first year of the COVID pandemic, I pitched a very different book with my agent. We pitched a book about It's a Wonderful Life called It's a Wonderful Book. It was going to be like a cultural history of that movie. I love that movie. And we got rejected by everybody. We got rejected by like 21 different publishers. I found out holiday books don't sell apparently, but one publisher reached out and wanted to meet with me. And there was an editor at this publisher who said, we can't do your movie book. But she reminded me, she said like 10, 12 years ago in a bar in Philadelphia at a conference, you pitched a memoir to me about fatherhood. And I had forgotten about this conversation.
Wow.
And she was like, are you ever going to write that book? And I was like kind of crushed by that conversation because it was not the book I wanted to write. I was flattered that she remembered it. But I was running the next morning on a trail, and I don't know, I think courage just kind of came. Her question and then running, those two things combined, I felt like a little bit of boldness. Maybe I can do this. And an idea for the first chapter kind of fell into my lap, and I went home and wrote like 5,000 words that day and sent them to her. And she said, yeah, this is the book we would do. So I, because of her, I agreed to do this. And excitedly thought maybe I am ready to do this now, to think about my dad finally, and to think about my father figures, which I had also been putting off doing. I'd had some troubled relationships with a father figure as well. And then I signed the contract, and then like for a year, I didn't write a word because I just was like, dang it. I regretted it.
Classic.
I regretted it right away because it's hard to think about your dad when you don't want to think about him. My dad died in 2007. And I was glad he was gone. The as hard as that is it sounds hard, but like it was a relief to us when he finally passed away, and I enjoyed not thinking about him. But you know what? It's not that easy. You don't get off that easy. I had things to reckon with. And so finally I got to work and started working on this story.
So I haven't read your book. I would love, tell me more, just kind of share a little bit about it.
So it's a memoir about fatherhood in 4 parts. So the first part is the father you get, the one that you're born with, whether you know him well or not. The second one is the fathers you make. So father figures that you might contend with or learn from. And then the third one is the father you believe in. So the idea of God the Father. And then the fourth one is the father you become, becoming a father. So it's 4 parts, and I just tell my story of each of those kind of topical concepts of fatherhood. And in the first part of the book, really what I'm trying to do is get to know who my dad was. My dad raised my sister. I have a sister who's 5 years older. He was in our home. My parents didn't get divorced until I was like in my 30s. And so he was there but absent, because he was an alcoholic and later on developed drug addictions as well, and was just a mess of a man and incompetent and kind of a liar and a cheat. And he moved us all around the country all the time, trying to burn bridges behind him and run from the disasters he was creating. And we had very chaotic lives. And so, but I didn't really know him. I didn't really know why he was the way he was. My mom didn't know much about him either. She married him 6 weeks after she met him. She was 19 years old, and he was a mystery to her too. And then, we didn't, because he moved us around so much, we didn't have any family really to talk to. He had cut us off from his family and from everyone who knew him. And so he was a mystery to me. And so what I did in this first part of this book was track him down. I did some reporting, became a journalist of my father. And there's a road trip story in this book of me going through the Deep South and trying to find connections to him. And also ultimately convincing his older sister, who was 9 years older, to talk to me, which she resisted doing for well over a year. But finally she agreed to answer some questions, and I made some discoveries. And now I feel like I know the man, and at least I know something about him that gave me some clarity about how he became the way he became.
Did that help in any sort of healing, or no?
I mean, in all kinds. I think I'm still learning from the process. This was probably 2 years ago now that I did all that work. I feel lighter towards him. I mean, part of what I discovered, this is sort of obvious, but what I discovered is that he had terrible trauma. He had terrible things happen to him when he was a little boy. His mom, it looks like his mom was abusive to him much of his childhood. And obviously you don't become the way my dad was without something awful happening to you. I hadn't gotten to the root of it before. And now that I have some clarity about his story, I have some images of his childhood and things that happened to him. It gives me compassion for a man that I really have hated and resented. And I was not expecting that. You know what I mean? When you meet an alcoholic or an addict and you hear their story, if they're a stranger to you, you're going to feel compassion for them. If they tell you, what happened to them that caused them so much pain, it's the same. I'm basically applying that same, mental model to my own dad now. And I didn't see, it's a little harder because he also inflicted pain upon me and my sister. But now that I know his story, it's at least I have access to, I don't know, I guess I have a new capacity to feel for him and to see him as a whole person.
Yeah, it helps sometimes just when something that hasn't made sense starts to make sense to you. It doesn't excuse it, but at least it explains it. Right. So I'm curious about really maybe when it comes to this podcast and its focus on foster care, and I know your book isn't specifically about that, but fatherhood is a big part of why, or fatherlessness is a big part of why kids are in foster care, and fatherhood is a big part of the healing process. So it's the second part of your book, The Fathers You Make.
Mhm.
That's kind of where kids in foster care are. They have these fathers that they have to kind of make.
Mhm.
Tell me about your discoveries on that part of the book.
I mean, part of it, that phrasing is kind of a signal to the way that I think about it, the fathers you make. I had never really thought about this before I started working on the book, but father figures aren't just like mentors
Mhm.
or big brother figures, or father-like people in your life that you receive. You actually create them. Like you do a lot of imaginative work with these men in your life. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You have agency in who they are to you, and sometimes you can, turn them into idols. You can idolize them, but also maybe worship them. you can place expectations upon them that maybe aren't fair, depending on who they are to you.
Mm-hmm.
What I did in the wake of my own disastrous dad was seek out a ton of older men for years and years
Yeah.
and years. And I think that was good. I mean, I created a kind of a network of father figures. I was desperate for like male influence for a long time. And I sought it out in all kinds of ways. And some of that was really beneficial, and some of it wasn't. I tell the story in part 2 of my book of my relationship with a pastor, a megachurch pastor who I worked for a long time. And he was a spiritual kind of figure and leader in my life, but he also was a father figure to me. And I expected him to like kind of heal my wounds, my daddy wounds. And it was too much to ask of him, really. And he ended up being kind of a mess of a guy and having his own very public scandal and fall, as is all too common, unfortunately. And so, and I was angry with him, and a lot of people were for a long time at the choices he made and what he did with his leadership. And he has plenty of fault to bear for a lot of those choices. However, what I learned in writing about him and exploring him in this book is that I also had a role in that story. Like I gave him a lot. I expected him to be something he was never going to be for me. I expected him to draw me in, to be close to me, to put his arm around me, to teach me things, to be a father to me. And he was never going to be that. And I should have known that way before that I did. And so, part of what I do in this part of the book is contend not just with the father figures that I had and whether they were good or bad, but also with myself and the role that I played in those relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's kind of bi-directional, it's, we, like I said, we have agency. And so you're kind of creating sort of I kind of moving this and connecting this also to the audience directly with the podcast as we think about, fatherlessness but specifically foster dads. I wanted to kind of ask you this question. We talk about, and this is so true of Brian's story, my story, so many men who end up being foster dads are in the space where, tend to be more reluctant. The wife sort of often leading the way and championing the cause, and we're following behind and feeling like we're always playing catch up, stereotyping here a little bit. But so many men, I think, feel, and maybe even when it comes to possibly mentoring and all these different things, that what we have to give is somehow maybe less than. Maybe it's because we don't feel we're as emotionally equipped. Whereas, whatever that is, maybe not as much nurturing, these types of things. But do you have any thoughts or insights you'd share with, and I'm thinking specifically of, the anxious, reluctant, maybe foster dad who's stepping to that space, or someone that's been fostering and is just like, am I making a difference, just being in the lives of these kids as a father figure? Do you have any thoughts towards, some of that?
Yeah, I mean, I tell the story in my book about when I became a dad and how it wasn't until my first kid was born that I realized I wasn't ready, and I was excited about it. But when she came into our lives, I felt extremely vulnerable and incompetent and anxious, yes. And like, I just don't know how to do this. I knew how to like fulfill the responsibilities. Like, I'm going to just, give the nighttime feedings, and I'm going to change the diapers and like that kind of stuff. I don't mind going to the grocery store and getting what we need. But my heart wasn't in it. And that's the thing I was worried about. Like, I honestly didn't feel love for this child. And I wrestled, I was kind of having an existential crisis over that for a while. Like, why am I not getting like this surge of emotions in my chest for this kid? Like I hear all these stories about, even for birth fathers in the delivery room, the baby's born and it's this magical, wondrous moment. That didn't happen for me. I was just kind of a little cold to it. And then for weeks afterwards, I was like, when am I going to feel like a dad? When is it going to kick in? Eventually it definitely kicks in. Like, I think that like, I'm a mess for my kids now. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a blubbering mess, easy to cry, all that kind of stuff, like a lot of dads become. And so I think that, part of the answer to anxiety is just listening to the stories of other dads and knowing like, it just takes time sometimes. Yeah. And what's needed is not for you to feel like you know how to do it, or to know how to love, or to feel like you have anything to teach or skills to transfer. I didn't feel like I had any of that. All that's really needed is just continual presence. Just, offering, can keep showing up. Everything will kind of work itself out in that relationship if you just keep choosing to show up. And not just like, kind of, like I said, my dad was present, but also absent. I mean, like kind of fully showing up, you know what I mean? Really attending to the person in front of you. And I think if you keep doing that, that anxiety will dwindle down and turn itself into love.
Yeah.
I appreciate your vulnerability there. And I imagine some people are like, I can't believe he said that, or like, what? I also, like, when my daughters were born, I think both times, the first, like, just visceral feeling and question that came to my mind, it was immediate, was, who are you?
Right.
I mean, there's this little stranger that you have to raise. And then, and like you said, it all of a sudden, it comes as you come. You're like, oh yeah, I'm ready to die for this person, or kill for them if I have to. So I'm curious. Then I'm going to really unpack this a little bit more. What you just said there about your dad, and about what you said is most needed is presence. And I think what you said about your dad probably did it in the extreme, but I assume that a lot of dads are guilty of this to a less extreme, is that they're present but absent. Tell me more about what you think that would look like today, and what it would take to change, to be present, and what difference would that make?
I mean, for me, honestly, it looks like kind of like being on my phone when the kids are in the room, maybe, or like being more attuned to the Nuggets game. I'm obsessed with the Denver Nuggets.
No, they're great.
Being preoccupied with whatever I'm preoccupied with. I mean, for me, it also looked a lot like just workaholism, bringing work home, not being able to turn it off in the evenings or on the weekends. You can do a lot of dutiful stuff. Like I'm our cook. I do all of our grocery shopping, and you can do a lot of stuff like that. Yeah. Even like bedtime routines and all that, and be completely absent-minded. 100%. Be somewhere else. You can do all those things and only be offering them the actual, like kind of activity. Or
I'm feeling convicted. Yes.
Yeah. And presence comes from deep within. You have to actually kind of like choose to like, be attentive. Last night, my daughter, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and she can be a 15-year-old daughter, right? So she can sometimes be withdrawn and be in her own world. And she's very crafty. She likes to be in her room doing her crafts. But sometimes she'll choose to come downstairs and like talk to me. And when she talks to me, she'll really talk. And
Yeah.
it might not be like what I want to hear about, but she's choosing to talk. And when she starts to unspool that, it just keeps coming and coming and coming. And I have to like choose to like really care about what she's saying. And I don't always do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like I can sometimes just like have one eye on her and one eye on the nuggets or whatever, or just have it wandering. And I catch myself sometimes doing that. It kind of happened last night where I was like, dang it, I'm not listening. I don't know what the last like 90 seconds of things she said was.
Right.
Because my day at work is still with me or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, man. I think that's the practice, is just trying to keep choosing to be as attentive as you can.
Yeah, I had to do a hack for myself, for my girls. Just everything you're saying, I resonate with, and I love learning. And one time, I don't even know how my girls were in elementary school, I think, when I told myself, become a student of my kids.
Yeah.
And it was like, just learn who they are.
Yeah.
And I loved that assignment.
Yeah. That's good. That's a good
and to realize how different those two girls are from each other.
Yeah. I love that. Well, and I love what you said too, Patton, of the intentional presence, and how, it's not rocket science. It really is about like also tuning into when they're especially needing us. And like, I think of an example for me of like my son, hey dad, can you throw the football? Maybe that's 10 minutes, but in that 10 minutes, give him everything I have, and try to probably replicate more of those moments. But in those minutes of being engaged, be all in. And I think when we look back at time, there's a great line by Vonnegut, the writer Vonnegut, when he says, it's those little moments that become the big moments when you think back in the end of your life. Those little things that it was just throwing a football or tossing, something, and man, that connection is what they're desiring.
Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I don't think we have to even be. I read some research a couple of years ago. I talk about this a little bit in my book, but there's a woman at Oxford named Anna Macon, she's an evolutionary anthropologist, and basically her argument is that we are wired for fatherhood. Like she's not coming at this as like a fatherhood advocate or anything like that. She came to this as a researcher, and she learned that the species that preceded Homo sapiens, part of the way they survived was by what she called investing fathers. Like, instead of the primates just like mating and then leaving, dads began to stick around and do things like play, like early childhood play, wrestling around on the ground. And she talks about how you can see how that impacts brains, and how much learning, emotional learning, relationship learning comes from that kind of play, rough play between dads and kids, and it wires us for that kind of, to give and receive that kind of nurturing our whole life through. It's really, really powerful stuff.
Yeah, it is. The kids know it too. They
right.
I have grandkids, and they act very different towards me than they do towards their my wife, and then when they fall and get hurt, they don't want me. Yeah.
Exactly.
Grandma. But when they're wanting to mess around, they don't want her. Hey, so So it's we play, men and fathers play an essential role, and it can't just be replaced.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
If I could fix one thing, it's like, if the thing that could fix most everything else when it comes to social wounds, it would be that fathers do exactly what you said, is be fathers, be present. Man, that would change society profoundly.
100% agreed.
Well, let's. I feel like you've kind of given the like key advice that would apply to anybody: foster dad or bio dad or stepdad or a dad who's stepping as a father figure. So I want to transition more to how people can, I assume they can find your book. Well, I know they can on Amazon. And what else as far as learning more about you and your work? Where can they find you?
Yeah, the book's available basically wherever you buy books. It's also on Audible. There's an audiobook version if you're an audiobook person. And then, my website is pattondodd.com. We're doing events around this, and so that's of interest to anyone.
Cool.
They can find me there. Social media is not my jam really, but I do it. But I'm on Instagram. I also have a Substack, which I'm updating more regularly. And you can find that also. Patton Dodd. Yeah.
Okay.
Patton Dodd.
Cool.
Yeah.
We'll share the website link. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'll put those links in. Well, Patton, thank you so much. I love memoirs, so I'm looking forward to digging into your book.
You're gonna love it. Oh man.
Yeah, and to our listeners, if you're not much of a reader, memoirs they grab you in a way that a book about fatherhood that is just a nonfiction book, it just won't grab you the way a memoir will. And so I encourage everyone to go grab this book and let it impact you, head and heart.
Thank you. It's also blessedly short, by the way. I tried
even better.
Even better. Yeah, especially for men.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, and it's so full of stories and just levity as well, and just being real. Man, it's so relatable. So
yeah.
Thank you, Travis.
All right.
Yep.
Patton, thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate
God bless.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, will you help us reach more people by subscribing, sharing the podcast with a friend, and leaving a 5-star review? If you've been inspired by what you've heard today and want to learn more of how you can make a difference for kids in foster care and the foster families where you live, visit americaskidsbelong.org. We depend on individual donors to fund our work. We'd be grateful if you would consider joining us as a monthly donor. Visit americaskidsbelong.org to make your tax-deductible donation. Thank you. Together, we can ensure a family for every child in foster care and a foster-friendly community to ensure every foster family feels loved and supported.